Pushpal has such a grounded real world perspective on what it actually takes to modernize factories. This is a special episode, isn't it, Jennifer?
Absolutely. I mean, I think our listeners are really going to enjoy this. I'm going to listen to this one back as soon as it comes out. This one was really fun.
Absolutely. It is just packed with good stuff. And I think our editors are going to remove this in the B-roll. We'll see. But at one point, Pushpal goes, I'm not sharing like too many things too fast. We're like, no, keep going.
For me, the takeaway from this episode that was so fun, the thing I really liked about the time we had here with Pushpal was he's the epitome of that perfect balance that you look for in manufacturing today between just this natural curiosity and the ability to really, really ground that in like, what are the goals? What are the goals for my business? What are the goals for my people? What are the goals for my organization? Yeah. And yet he keeps bringing it back to like, but it's so fun to learn and discover and push new technologies and really, really link that to goals. It's just that it's so inspiring.
One of the parts when he transitions from tech to talking about IT and OT people and bringing them together, and I'm thinking in my head, you can't even really see this on his LinkedIn, but yeah, when he was at Honeywell, he literally moved between IT and OT, and the people on the team were always like, Pushpal's my guy. He understands both sides. He really does, and I love his take at the end as well on the future, 5 years from now vision, really grounded and visionary. So people are going to enjoy this one.
Yeah, people are going to love this one. Let's get into it.
Let's do it. Let's get in.
All right.
We are thrilled to have Pushpal Jagdale with us today, a forward-thinking leader in the world of smart manufacturing and digital transformation. With over a decade of experience, Pushpal has led major initiatives at companies like Honeywell, currently Novelis. He serves as the manufacturing IT business relationship manager for North America. His experience spans factory digitization, MES implementation, legacy system integration, and the application of AI and analytics to drive operational efficiency. At Novelis, Pushpal is responsible for leading strategic efforts to modernize manufacturing systems across a global footprint. From delivering multi-million-dollar productivity gains to integrating hundreds of disparate systems into connected factory ecosystems, his work is redefining what's possible in digital manufacturing. His background blends hands-on engineering, strategic IT leadership, and a deep understanding of how to turn data into action on the shop floor. In today's conversation, we'll dive into real-world strategies for scaling digital transformation, making AI operationally relevant, and building alignment between business and IT. We'll also explore how manufacturers can overcome common barriers with legacy systems and capture ROI from smarter, more connected operations. Pushpal, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for that kind introduction, and happy to be here. It's my pleasure.
I've been excited to interview you, Pushpal. It's been, amazing to work with you and see you in the industry, but I'm really excited to get more about your background and kind of what makes you who you are and like your perspective on things. So let's roll it back. You started your career working hands-on in industrial automation and MES deployments. And before making your way to Honeywell, as we just talked about in your background, you were working at Rockwell Automation and Volvo. So what first drew you to the world of manufacturing and industrial systems? Why this?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? This goes way back in my early days. So this was me when I was a teenager. We had a field trip actually to a cookie manufacturing facility near where I was located, right? So I think I was 14 or 15 at the time. And the cookie was called Parle-G, actually. It's a big thing in India. It pairs very well with tea. And I was very excited to visit and see my favorite cookies being manufactured in real time in front of me. So that was like an aha moment. Okay, yeah, this is what large scale manufacturing looks like. And that was a good time for me to also choose my career path. So I decided to pursue engineering. I always wanted to know what I wanted to do in terms of engineering, but not what branch I wanted to start, right? Mm-hmm. So naturally, electronics made more sense at that time. I started as a bachelor's in electronics engineer. Then as a part of that, I started working with a system integrator for Rockwell Automation. So they used to do like your MES implementation, control panel designs. And working with them, I had another opportunity to visit a pharmaceutical client of ours and seeing my ladder logic and the HMI and SCADA screens being worked on in action. That was like a solid yes for me. Okay, this is what I want to do. And from there, I just continued on this path and never looked back.
I love that. I was thinking in the current climate, everyone's asking, how do you build more manufacturing? It's like, I think you solved it. Cookie manufacturing with kids.
Exactly. You have to get it right, at a young age.
Yeah, when people ask me about my story, I don't think of this often, but I did go to a Dr. Pepper plant early on, and I thought that was just so cool. What flavor were those cookies? Do you remember? Or what kinds are they?
They only have one flavor actually, and it's very hard to describe. It's more like buttery, coconutty, if I'm not mistaken. You don't get that easily in the US, but if I find one, I'll definitely share it with you when I see you next.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing when Andrew said that. I thought, well, I think we've solved the workforce development problem. Take 14, 15-year-old kids. I have teenagers, so I know how much they like to eat. Take them to a place where they manufacture something they like to eat. I think you're in. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
I love it. Pushpal, let me jump in for a second and ask a couple of questions. So looking back, you kind of talked about, what your desire was in getting in some of those early lessons that you learned when you came into manufacturing. Writing and designing SOPs, leading Kaizens, doing, the cycle time analysis. What are some of those lessons that you picked up that still today kind of guide your approach to now digital transformation?
If you spend more time on the shop floor and in manufacturing, right, you start building that continuous improvement mindset, and that sticks with you no matter where you go. And that, goes into your personal and professional life, right? So that's one thing that I still and use whenever I'm doing digital transformation. So for example of that would be, oftentimes in manufacturing, the mindset is if it's not broken, don't fix it, right? I'm making my demand and pushing products out of the factory. Why do I need to invest multi-million dollars into a brand new technology transformation initiative? But with this continuous improvement mindset, we can ask questions like, hey, that's completely fine. But can you make the same with less by implementing automation, by automating some of the repeating processes that you have, by simplifying the processes in the first place? Or can you make more with the same you have by unlocking capacity across your assets by connecting equipment and monitoring the OEE in real time? So these are the type of questions, you start asking when you go through that shop floor experience, build that continuous improvement mindset, and you always look for opportunities to improve. That's one thing definitely that I carried in my current role and my previous role in Honeywell from my Volvo days and first Rockwell days. Another thing is coming from shop floor, you're very sensitive to any projects that you do with the plants, right? You have to be empathetic because their primary job is to push product out of the factories. And when you come with all these big transformation initiatives, you have to really ask yourself, like, how are you improving a day in a life at a plant, right? How are the projects that are you doing impacting like people from the shop floor towards the plant manager, eventually to your regional leadership team? So some of these things I like to keep in mind that I brought back from my manufacturing days into my current role. And these are some of the things I look, into before starting any program.
Now, I want to pick on the kind of systematic thinking that you were doing there and connecting what's going to change a day in the life of the shop floor, but also scale. I want to talk about scale for a moment, because a lot of times you mentioned people are resistant to change and they say, can't we just keep doing it the old way? When people are skeptical of technology transformation, there's a lot of these stories people like to tell where like, oh, we did something fancy, but you did it the old way and it was better. One of them, for example, is like the factory was trying to do this crazy smart scales to figure out when a box was empty, but we just set up a fan and it blew off that were empty. And look how genius that was, right? And it is a great story because it's like, just use the tools you had available. But when something scales, the scale scales, it's like, figure out a smart scale, but you can do it in 100 plants. There's just no question it's going to be dramatically impactful. And then maybe that factory held back that transformation. So take us to your prior role at Honeywell. And this was in discrete and electronics, where you oversaw the connection of hundreds of machines, MES and WMS. And you had to think about challenges to scale a data architecture so you could identify the opportunities that were working and scale them across plants. How did you think about it, and how did you overcome the challenges to scale?
That's a very good question, right? Because in my previous role, it was a global role, and we worked with plants from Mexico, Romania, Italy, some Asia plant as well. And naturally, when you look at a global scale, you don't expect as much standardization as you need, right? You have assets that are different, you have processes that are different, even the product mix and the overall portfolio could be different too. But at the end of the day, you're being measured on the same metrics and you have the standard formulas. So, how do you make that happen at a scale? So I think one of the biggest challenges we had there was how do we first get the right data that we need at the right time at the right quality level that we need, right? So fortunately, we had a good data strategy to first like really define what those metrics are, what that data dictionary looks like. So a lot of work was done from that pre-work perspective. And then the second, we work with a lot of our internal SMEs to make an inventory of the assets, their ability to even connect and talk to your enterprise network. Because if you have legacy assets, you really cannot network them. So a lot of pre-work is the point I'm trying to make before even going a global route to scale. Second, you start with like small proof of concepts, right? You never go into a big bang with any new technology implementation. At least that's not what we did back then. So, for example, Andrew, when we partnered with you, we started very small with like one SMT line there. Okay, let's see what we can do with connecting front end SMT machines and how can we scale it globally down the road. So, that approach worked really well because that allowed us to demonstrate to our business what these digital capabilities can do. And at the same time, secure their partnership and buy-in in terms of scaling globally.
Just to pull on that, I like how you said first that you cataloged the assets that you had and you understood the new versus legacy. So you kind of understood the footprint of what was possibly scaled.
Yes.
And then you go back to a line and you prove a business use case, knowing that
Yes.
it's going to matter to be able to, and then, then you're able to pull it across, right?
Exactly. And to even start with, you have to have a right data strategy, right, at the executive level, right? Otherwise, you'll never have those initiatives that are cascading down be successful because you won't have the right teams involved and you won't have the right support that you need. So that's how it all started. And then we had to like make an asset catalog, see what was possible with the asset that was possible, who can we work with to make that happen, and then eventually start small and scale globally.
Awesome. So talk to us a bit about your move from discrete to metals and recycling, because that's a really interesting, and I personally, one of my favorite things is when I go from plant, doing product A to product B to C or process A to B to C, and there's some of the same principles and some different ones, and it's a blend of leveraging your expertise and learning all new things. But I would just love to hear from you, like, what was that like specifically, this career move to Novelis? How's it been applying digitization in new industry? What's the same? What's different? How's that going?
Yeah, no, it's going really good. And it's definitely a big change from what I used to do with Honeywell, right? Moving from discrete to batch and moving into metals manufacturing. It's a whole different beast, I'll tell you, right? It's hardcore manufacturing. If you go to like a remelt plant or a finishing plant, you'll see these tons of big coils and ingots moving around. So it's very you feel like you're in the action, right? And the environment that you're in, it's completely different. What's same, I would say, is that, if you go to any manufacturing plant, your primary objectives and goals are the same, right? Some of those are, am I making at the rate I'm supposed to make? Am I meeting my customer quality and, specification that I need? And am I delivering on time in full to my customers? So those things will never change no matter what manufacturing space you go in. So that's been similar here in Novelis, and some of the projects that we have in this IT, AI, digital space have materialized to meet those goals. In terms of what's changed, right? Because of the type of manufacturing we are in, our number one priority here is employee safety because of the heavy machineries that we work with and also the type of manufacturing we have here. So a lot of emphasis and a lot of projects have been designed around how do we make, life of a operator safer, life of our employees safer on the plant. And there's a lot of cool like use cases that we also have that I can discuss more if you're interested in what we're doing from safety perspective using AI. So that's, I would say, one big change from safety aspect. Not that Honeywell, we didn't focus on safety. We absolutely did. But here, that's our number one objective because of the type of manufacturing we are in. How's it going in terms of implementing digital solutions? The challenges can be the same, right? Because it's a multi-billion-dollar manufacturing company. It's decades, not even like maybe a century worth of legacy that we have, right, in this aluminum industry. We are the industry leaders, and then we have a lot of, acquisitions that we have done as well to be where we are. So that naturally comes with some non-standard assets as well, to my earlier point. So how do we make all that data available from these different assets? How do we connect them up to your level 2, level 3 environments? So a lot of work is going from that perspective as well. So it's something similar that we worked on, but in a different manufacturing setting.
Awesome. Awesome. That's super cool. Hey, ChatGPT. So we're on here with Pushpal, and he's made an interesting career transition from Honeywell to Novelis. To someone in electronics assembly production, briefly explain aluminum recycling and rolling, and to someone in aluminum recycling and rolling, briefly explain electronics assembly. How would people in those two fields understand each other's production?
Absolutely. This is a fun way to bridge the gap between two different industries. Explaining aluminum recycling and rolling to an electronics professional. In aluminum recycling and rolling, the focus is on taking scrap aluminum and remelting it into new usable forms. The metal goes through a series of processes where it's melted, purified, and then cast into large ingots or slabs. These slabs are then heated and passed through rolling mills to be thinned out into sheets or coils. These coils can then be used in various products, from beverage cans to automotive parts. So for someone used to electronics, it's a shift from dealing with intricate small components to large-scale continuous processes. Explaining electronics assembly to an aluminum professional. In electronics assembly, the focus is on placing tiny electronic components onto printed circuit boards, PCBs. This involves machines that pick and place components with extreme precision, soldering them in place, and then inspecting them for quality. It's a world of high precision, miniaturization, and rapid changeovers between different product runs. For someone from the aluminum industry, it's a shift from continuous large-scale processes to intricate batch-based manufacturing.
Nice. Thanks, AI. I appreciate it.
That was impressive. Yes.
So Pushpal, yeah, let me take you up on offering those safety use cases. I am really interested. What are, just like briefly, what are one or two of the AI use cases you're doing with safety at Novelis that you can talk about, or maybe that's happening in the industry generally?
Yes. No, thanks, Andrew, for that question. And that's a very interesting question because we are actually actively working on it. So in Novelis, we have a Plant of the Future initiatives under which we do all these cool AI machine learning type projects, right? And one of the projects that we are currently doing is using robots to do, your routine inspections on the assets, where an operator historically would have to go into a hazardous condition to take certain measurements like temperature, if there is a gas leak, or whatever it could be, right? So that could cause issues from employee safety perspective and also employee productivity, right? They could be doing other valuable things instead of doing those routine inspection in a hazardous environments. So we have implemented robots to do that for us, when now just the technician or the operator can remotely monitor the asset conditions based on these sensors that are mounted on these robots, and they do like a walk. These are like robot dogs, to be more specific. They just walk around the factory. That's very cool to see. And they don't even need any treats, so they'll just work for you without any treats,
Yeah, no, that's a great one. I often people hear me say the dull, dirty, dangerous of disappearing. Those are the right jobs to use AI and robotics for. So here you have a dirty, dirty job, a dangerous job, right?
Yeah.
That's good to have a robot dog for. So it's fantastic. Okay, so let me ask you about. I want to go back for just a second to the legacy and modern systems. We touched on that just a bit at Honeywell before you moved to Novelis, and how you had to categorize all the different systems so that when you did a pilot, you knew where you're going to be able to scale and pick your bets. And that doesn't mean connecting legacy. We're connecting a lot of legacy, but maybe not all of it, and making a specific choice. But now we've talked about how you've worked across different industries. And so maybe play across that in these different environments. Like, what are the keys to effectively bringing legacy and modern systems into the picture? What technology makes a difference? Where do you step back from tech, not get lost in an implementation challenges, and just tackle it from the business definition side?
So I think the challenges from what I've seen in both the industries are more or less the same when it comes to like the type of assets we work with and the type of data that we need. And the data contextualization is a big one because oftentimes with legacy assets, you have these machines generating data that your new modern engineers would probably not even understand what that means. So there is often OEM reliance. You have to work with the specialty suppliers who can help you with that contextualization. So connecting your legacy into your modern, let's say, ERP or MES systems. So I think the biggest challenge that I have seen lies is around your level 2 to level 3 communication. That's the IT and OT where it merges, right? And how do you make sure that data is available? Second is the actual network connectivity we spoke about, because you cannot really connect assets that are not compliant with your network. And then a wrong patch or an upgrade can break down your equipment, or you're also susceptible to a cyber threat. So that's another challenge. And the last challenge is the different communication protocols, right? That the equipment talk about. Now, in this particular industry, what we are doing, at least in Novelis, is we have a very strong internal IT and OT teams who are helping a lot in terms of these translating these telegrams, contextualizing that to feed up to your, level 3 systems and eventually to your ERPs to close that loop between your manufacturing and the top floor. And I would say, like, even keeping the technical challenges aside, the biggest challenge in bridging the legacy and the modern systems from my perspective is to first have like a strong, sponsorship from your executive team to even do that in the first place, right? That ties back to my original comment about manufacturing and the mindset being don't fix it if it's not broken. So oftentimes you have to start there, make sure you have all the key players aligned, you have that collaboration, and you have that right communication with your business audience to help them realize what are we actually trying to do and how it's going to help their lives better. So I think I addressed your question on the challenges. If you want me to talk about how do we solve for that here in Novelis, what we do is we have these BRM roles, right? And we are changing the mindset in terms of how IT and operations talk to each other. So it's not like a client and a delivery partner relationship anymore. It's like a partnership, right? So whenever we walk into a transformation project, we make sure we walk in as partners, right? And if one of us are not aligned, we have to reevaluate what we are really trying to do. So we have a shared vision against which we execute on that allows us to, foster more collaboration, get the right support that we need. And when things get challenging, with oftentimes too in any, transformation project, and when it comes to change management, we have the right support from the business and the right SMEs partnering with us in terms of execution. So obviously there are technical challenges as well in terms of bridging the legacy and the modern world. But in my experience, the biggest challenge and the gap has been how do we make sure all of us are aligned from your digital team and your operations team and your plant management team to make this happen.
That was a fantastic answer, Pushpal.
Yeah, agreed. I actually want to double tap on that for a minute. It's, if you've listened to the podcast before, you know us very well. You hear me say all the time that the technology is the easy part. Change management is challenging. Governance is challenging, right? You just kind of walked through making sure that you have the right stakeholders there, they're making sure that there is strong alignment because you know that is critical to, mission success. Can you walk me through, let's maybe share an example. I think this is the thing that business leaders want to learn from each other the most, which is how do you create that synergy? How do you create that partnership? And it's challenging. Maybe walk me through either methodologies that you have or a specific example. Talk to us a little about that.
Sure. So I think what works in my case is you have to talk the language of business when you're pitching any idea, right? So your business case should resonate with the business challenges. So what I like to do personally is put myself in the shoes of a VP of operations and really understand if somebody comes to me with a $3-4 million ask to implement a modern MES, would I really invest into that? So you have to be a good storyteller, right? So that's how you can definitely ensure that you're successful in terms of buying that partnership and working with business to make sure they're aligned on what you're doing. So business case is what I'm talking about in this case. You have to make sure it resonates with what they need. So a specific would be like, let's say I want to do a MES implementation in one of our plants, and this is more real, right? I've done this many times, and this is something that I was hired to do here as well. So this is close to my heart. So oftentimes when we look at MES implementations, we see, oh, we are running out this outdated technology stack. We oftentimes have our operational disrupted because of MES being down. However, we have IT teams on the clock supporting the system and making sure we have enough, runtime to not impact operations. So from business perspective, everything is good. So when you put a business case, sure, you can talk about technology obsolescence, lack of documentation, and, lack of support. But would that really resonate with your VP or SVP of Ops who's going to sign that check? So the way I look at things is, okay, maybe let's look at your MES as how it's going to help make business better, right? In terms of, hey, now I can get my product traceability, I can get real-time information from my assets. With integrating with my QMS, I can make sure my products are of topmost quality that I need. With integrating with my scheduling platform and SNOP platforms, I know if there is a market fluctuation in terms of demands, I can feed that signals to the shop floor in real time. If I have to do a NPI, I can do it in a way more agile way than what I was doing with pen and paper. So these are the things that I like to look at whenever talking about business case, and also have a dollar value assigned to everything that I'm trying to commit to, right? Oftentimes we go to our leadership with percentages and they say, I cannot deposit percentages in my bank account. Show me what's the real impact. Show me what the dollar value is. And if there is no dollar value, what are the soft impact? What are the soft savings? So I think the biggest lessons that I've learned in this last decade working on business cases is how do you make it resonate with what business needs and have a solid number assigned to it that's signed off by, your finance teams before you even go any further.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that will ensure, the right level of partnership.
I wanted to tag a question on this business case topics. That was a great framework you played out, and you gave a couple of MES examples. What about AI and this new emerging area? How are you, because I think a lot of people are struggling with that. How are you thinking about building compelling business cases around AI specifically?
Yeah, no, interesting that you bring it up, Andrew, right? Because that's a journey we are going through right now here as well. So AI, as you know, it's still as mature as it is today compared to 3 years ago. It's still new. Like, we are tech savvy, we are digital team, so we know the use cases and the advantages. But as a business user, it's oftentimes not really clear what value AI brings. So what we have done here is, let's start small, right? Let's first get Copilot to let's start recording your meeting and make notes. Let's see how much that spark interest. Now, once you're done that, hey, this particular tool can also write emails for you, can respond for you. It can be your task planner. It can take a lot of your non-value added work outside of your plate and then make time available for you as a business user to work on impactful things. So point I'm trying to make is you start with these small use cases and then scale them once you get that business partnership. So here, what we have also done is we've done a lot of proof of concepts in terms of advanced predictive maintenance, and that have worked.
I interrupt you for just a sec, Pushpal. I just wanted to underscore how important that is too, because I just read the Manufacturing Leadership Council put out a study, and one of the most about generative AI and co-pilots, and one of the most striking things was they asked everyone, are you involved in funding or supporting an AI initiative? And it was something like a third of people said yes. But then they asked, are you using AI in your own work to be more productive? And it was like 1, 3, 5% at most across the different demographics. And it was like, how is that possible that like a third to a half are backing it, but no one's using it? And then it seemed out of order. So I like the way that you said it was like, that's not like explicitly a factory only use case. That's an everyone use case. But like, record your meeting, help you take follow-up actions. Like, it's like that AI competency. And then I just wanted to underscore that, but please keep going. I think you were bringing it then into proof of concepts. I don't know if you were going to apply it more factory specific or stay with
Yes.
general productivity. So
No, I'm going into the factory specific use cases too, but the point I was trying to make is you cannot directly go into factory use cases without having your business really see the value and have the AI record their meetings and make notes and see how amazing it can be, right, in terms of the value it can add. Now, to translate it to your factory specific use cases, I briefly talked about the APM, which is the advanced predictive maintenance. Now, we have had a lot of success in that space because we work with these massive assets, which are like multi-million dollar assets like your rolling mills, your remill facilities, and the machinery that goes behind it. So ensuring like reliability and uptime is the key focus for us in the operation space. So we really cannot afford any downtime, right? Be it like an hour or 30 minutes, we have to keep the mills running to push the metal out. On our remill site, if we have an equipment down, we cannot really let that metal like be solidified again because we have to keep it in a molten state for the flow. So asset reliability and uptime is a big one, and that's where APM got a lot of focus, and we have delivered a lot of good use cases under the POTF program. So how AI is helping there is we have these sensors mounted to track your vibrations, your temperature anomalies, your torque, and then feed that into your machine learning model tied to your product and your process information and predict a potential failure before it can even happen, right? Hey, for example, I'm seeing my vibrations are going out of the range that it typically is. So that's going to cause my mill to probably shut down. So we can now control our mill speed and cycle time in real time using AI without any operator input to bring it back to normal without it being having to be broken down the road. So some of the use cases from APM perspective, we also have use cases in the knowledge management space, as we know with the employees, new generation of employees coming, working on the legacy assets. How do you really make sure that they understand what they need to do? So feeding SOPs, training materials into your AI learning model and helping the new engineers just write prompts in terms of what you need from troubleshooting perspective and getting those answers. So some of that use case has also been worked on. And there are many more in terms of intelligent cycle times, analyzing our water chemistry information to predict certain casting recipes. And there's a lot happening in this space.
Those are awesome. And I love how the space is starting to mature so we can talk not just with technologists, but business leaders about the different types of AI, right? So you talked about like using AI for your meeting notes and taking your next step, which is heavily powered by generative and LLM, right? And then predictive maintenance, time series analysis, sensors, your own, machine learning model, loop dials, and then knowledge management, which rotates back to the large language models playing a big role. And it used to be more siloed because there's many different types of AI that are all pretty mature and powerful. And there's like no area of the business where there's not at least one use case, right? And I think that's a good thing because it's going to help us build that personal knowledge and touch with AI to get to work with it. So anyways, love the answer to that one. I think that's critical and very, very great use case too.
Yes, so it's not just for the factories. That's the point I was trying to make. It goes across functions, even your office jobs in terms of employee productivity is where we have seen a lot of interest being sparked. And I'm sure it will only get better over the next couple of years with your agentic AI taking place and being more autonomous in that area.
Yeah. I won't pick on any person when I say this, but it wasn't that long ago. It was a specific head of operations at a manufacturer. None of the ones referenced in this call, but we were trying to pitch our technology, and the executive said, "I want to retire before I have to think about this." That was like his response, And I kind of got that because he was only a couple of years off, and it was like, that's a legitimate feeling. And at the same time, it's obviously so critical to get into it's very complex at first, but into just the pieces of any strategy, in this case, the pieces of your different AI strategy. And so anyways, great to have leaders like you that just so fluidly understand all that, can help other people that are listening to it.
Yeah. I mean, you can empathize with, we're still at the stage, Pushpal just was saying how, as mature as it's come already, it's only a few years old for AI technologies, right? And you can understand, you can empathize with somebody that, when you think about the stages of a business, forming, storming, norming, performing, right? We are definitely probably still in forming, and a lot of people are feeling storming. So, you feel that pain of people not wanting to, have to go through that storming, but we are seeing some really incredible upsides already in some of the use cases. Pushpal has kind of already talked about a few. I kind of wanted to double tap on that a little bit. Talk to me about, again, you've implemented systems across globally around the world, across, I think, Romania, Mexico, North America. So lots of experience rolling out global deployments. First, talk to me about, your methodologies that you've employed to ensure success on global deployments. Does that translate in the era of AI? Do a lot of those, do you have to write a new playbook? How is that working? Is it going too far too fast? Are you able to lean on some of these tried and true best practices? Walk me through how you see that happening right now.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So historically, what I've seen that worked for us in terms of global deployments is ensuring we first partner with the right global sponsor to champion this, right? That's from the people perspective. Now, from process perspective, those champions can help, streamline certain processes on the shop floor if needed for the digital system. It shouldn't be the other way around that, hey, I'm still following a non-standard process to fit the system. The system is enforcing a standard process that's being followed across some other plant in some region, which is considered as best practice. Now, when it comes to technology, right, that's where it gets interesting in terms of scalability. When we talk about historically what had worked is you have to have, like, again, tying that back to people is the right players, like a good enterprise architect or a solution architect, to really put that overall picture together on what would work locally and can scale globally. On top of that, you need to have like a good center of excellence, or at least a community of practice to, at the least, to ensure that whatever you do, you have that knowledge in-house and help with the implementation. When it comes to AI, it's a little bit different in terms of you need a lot of infrastructure to even scale it globally, right? In terms of the volume, the variety of data that you get. So you have to start with the data strategy. I keep going back to the data strategy because there is no data without strategy, neither there is strategy without data, right? So you need to really understand what you're trying to solve for, what are the key metrics you want to solve for, build that catalog of, processes and assets that are going to generate data, ensure you have the right data quality that's going into your model because you don't want garbage in, garbage out situation. And then when it comes to like scaling the models, we are still, like, at least in my experience, we are yet to see how AI can go global in terms of scalability, right? We are still working on use cases that are plant specific, but there is a lot of opportunity in terms of global scalability with the right partnering with the right cloud providers, partnering with the right, teams in terms of data engineering, data science, your digital team, and a good business champion to support it. So overall, the methodology has not changed, like from what I'm seeing, but the infrastructure requirements are totally different when it comes to AI, and it should start with the data strategy. That's one thing I keep going back because I've seen a lot of projects fail because you just don't have the right data to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a customer echo those exact same thoughts about a month ago, talking about how, she talks with other people at their organizations, and really, like you just said, that importance of maybe being very intentional about making sure that the data actually is AI ready is an intentional process.
Yeah. I just saw a study from Deloitte about how investment in data foundations and analytics has really advanced to the top. And we see this too. I told this, you might laugh at this on Pushpal, but I was trying to explain to some of our investors some of the trends we were seeing. And I shared how this customer said, I use ChatGPT and the latest AI, and it's amazing. And I realized without a doubt, this is going to be in my factory. Let's do a pilot. We say, great, let's do a pilot. He said, in our pilot, we will use no AI. And and I knew what he meant. And the investors are like, they're trying to understand, like, how does this make sense? And it's like, well, everybody can see the promise of AI, and they know they need to set the foundations, and they need to do data foundations. They need to do analytics without AI often to understand what's exactly known from physics and statistical principles, and start AI in such a way that they know they're going to be able to scale it. And some are being really aggressive, and they're able to actually find AI use cases across the board, especially in knowledge management, knowledge capture, guidance, right? And at the same time, if you just zoom out, you are seeing data foundations and analytics investments, which is right. That's the biggest thing on average to enable the power of AI. So what I wanted to ask you with, we've had a number of great questions here about ROI and legacy machines and specific processes and use cases. Just kind of zoom out for me here for your vision of the factory in, let's say, 2030. Let's pick about 5. It used to be like, let's pick 10, 20. They're going so fast. Let's pick about 5.
Yeah.
So 5 years from now, what do you imagine the factory of 2030 is like? What's fundamentally different? What are frontline teams and business leaders doing differently? And I know that's a hard question, but you're a pretty visionary guy. So what are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, if only I had a crystal ball, right? But we can look at what the trends have been historically and the advancement in technology. Just when I started my career back in the days and where we are today, I can take some educated guess on where we'll be like 4.5, 5 years down the line. One thing I would say that might not be as optimistic of an opinion is we will still be working on a lot of foundation work, right? We'll still have legacy assets that would need to be upgraded. We'll still have these CPWE initiatives making IT/OT networks talk together to even work on any digital program. We'll still have a lot of emphasis going around getting the basics right? Your Industry 3.0 work that's still long pending at some of our, manufacturing facilities across the globe, right? And when I talk about our, I mean in the manufacturing space as a whole, not just any organization I'm with, just as an industry where we are headed. But on top of that, we have also matured a lot in terms of our, AI use cases that from what I've seen in the last 3 years, they're already operationalized to some level of, extent in terms of be it a proof of concept or a full-fledged project. I see those scale globally over the next 3 to 5 years across this manufacturing space. I see also a lot of, training gap that would need to be addressed for the frontline leaders, right? They need to upskill a little bit in terms of data analytics, in terms of working with advanced robots, in terms of being more collaborative with technology rather than just following SOPs and pushing the product out of the factory. There would be some learning that will need to happen over the next 5 years to make that frontline team ready. And from leadership perspective, I think they'll be using heavily relying, I would rather predict that on AI to make certain strategic decisions. So it would be a mix of, I would say, both continuing on the foundation, but wherever we have the plant maturity, we can definitely see a lot of advancements in terms of data feeds from the shop floor and how it can help make decisions in real time at the top floor using AI, ML, or any digital technology you would implement. I would not predict that we'll be fully lights out across the board by no means, right? We still have a long way to, go there, but definitely things will be much different in the next 5 years for the better.
I totally agree. And I think a lot of people don't have the clarity that you had there. And first off, again, I don't know, you don't know exactly how things are going to play out, but I like how you said at the shop floor, you really talked about training and culture and then working with robotics. And then at the strategic engineering planning level, executive level, you said heavy use of AI. That's one of the different, right? This is a strategic planning level technology wave, not just an execution level wave. And then the robotics is coming as a slightly longer pull. So I think that was a great. I think that was a great projection. We'll see.
Yeah, and my hope is most manufacturers don't directly jump on AI train without working on the foundations and the basics, right? Just like you cannot start an MES without having your foundations in place. So AI is no different. You need to have the right data to even support your model. So over the next 5 years, my hope at least is that big manufacturers see that they need to start from the scratch, work on the foundations before they jump into, big transformation projects.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's interesting to hear you talk about it and the clarity, like Andrew said, that you have about it. I think I was trying to explain a little bit of AI and how it's being used in businesses to one of my kids a couple of weeks ago. And I used the analogy that, look, it's you weren't here before the internet, but like you can relate to cars. Like it's like a car. It's like a very, very well-oiled, incredibly capable machine, but human brains still largely have to drive it. Right? You still have to know the road. You still have to know the limitations. You have to know the potential. And it's interesting, hearing you talk about, the potential of it, and also understanding very clearly the guardrails that have to be up to get us to utilize it.
All right. I think it's time for some rapid fire questions. Are you ready, Push?
Ready.
All right. Is there a book, movie, or TV series that inspires you when thinking about the future of manufacturing?
There is this TV show, I think it's a British docu-series called Inside the Factories, if I got it right. So I love watching their, YouTube videos in terms of how you can see your daily products that you use being manufactured. And they show a lot of advanced technologies that go into it. That's the present, but however, I see that in the future as well, how manufacturing will scale across our everyday, day-to-day use products in terms of mass production. So that's just it. I'm not an avid reader, but that one docu-series stands out in this space.
That's fun. There's one that I watch as well. So it's interesting to hear you say that. I like that. Okay, really quick. Do you have a leader or innovator in technology or engineering that you admire the most or greatly? And who and why?
This might sound cliche, but Steve Jobs for many reasons. But one of the reasons I would say is just his passion towards excellence, right? So there is this story, I don't know if it's true or false, but I think most of us have heard about the introduction of the iPod and it being too big for his liking, and then him challenging the engineer that cut the size by whatever X%, and then there was a bit of a back and forth, and he just dropped that AirPod in a aquarium only to see the bubbles pop to the surface, showing that there is still some empty space in that and there are opportunities to improve. Just that one thing really stuck with me, how he pushed his team towards excellence, right? So that's one of the reasons, along with many more, why I admire him.
That's right.
I haven't heard that anecdote. I love it. Feels like it could be true. Yeah. What of technology, Pushpal, outside of manufacturing has had the most impact on your life?
I would say, you see those electric guitars back there? That's a technology that has had a great impact in my life, right? I just love the feeling of, the string when you start playing and plucking, that being modulated and amplified into the sounds that you need to produce. It just brings a different kind of peace to me.
Those are special guitars too, aren't they?
Yes.
I can kind of make them out. That's amazing.
That is fantastic. I don't play the guitar, but I play the piano, so I feel your love for it. It's fun. If you could instantly acquire a new skill or knowledge in any area, what would it be?
This will be something totally different than what I'm doing. It would be more towards astrophysics and quantum mechanics, because I'm a big space nerd and all kinds of curious in terms of understanding the true nature of reality and why we are here. So if I could study more, that's what I would do.
Oh, what a good answer. Love that. Yeah, you get more wishes. It was a good wish.
That's right.
Okay, in a few words, what advice would you give to young manufacturing professionals starting out in the field today who aspire to have the opportunities, the responsibilities that you're having now?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that start with the basics, right? There's a lot you can do in manufacturing, be it working with the process, quality, reliability teams, or even you can take the technology route that I did in terms of IT and OT system implementations. So see what you really like, work with different departments and really assess, so what is it that brings you true joy? Because as we all know, manufacturing is not for everyone, right? It's very high pace, it's also very high impact, but it keeps you on your toes. So you have to be a special kind of a person to be on the shop floor and, do that every day. So try different departments, see what works for you, and then continue building your skills on that. It also wouldn't hurt to, learn some basics like your Toyota production systems and your Lean Six Sigmas of the world, because oftentimes you'll hear Japanese terms like Kaizens and Yamazumis, and you won't be confused if you go through some of the basics there. And lastly, what I would say is, keep learning and keep upgrading your skill sets when it comes to digital technologies, because that's where we are headed as an industry, right? Learn more about your MESs, your level 3 applications, learn more about AI, and read some more white papers, use cases, and see, if that's something that interests you in this space. And most importantly, just have fun, because it can be a pretty interesting space to be in.
Pushpal, this was amazing. This was just packed with insights and good stories and use cases. What a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for having me, Andrew.